Welcome into another episode of my Dynasty Fantasy Football YouTube. Today I'm looking at some Dynasty sells. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Let's go. First one, Jaylen Waddle. As usual, Dynasty managers have too much recency bias with wide receivers. We all know every wide receiver pretty much, outside of a few elite ones, are up and down. But I think that their market value flies too far in one direction or another after good or bad games, and this is no exception. So this year, Waddle in 11 games, 41 catches, 548 yards, 2 touchdowns, 56 targets, 3.7 catches, and 49.8 yards a game. Obviously, these are not great numbers, but it's not the full story because of Tua Tagovailoa's injury. We know that the Dolphins' offense did not move without Tua. In the 4 games without Tua, Waddle was irrelevant. 13 catches, 119 yards, 21 targets, 3.3 catches, and 29.8 yards per game. Really terrible. With Tua, 28 catches, 429 yards, 2 touchdowns, 33 targets, 4 catches, and 61.3 yards a game. Now, these numbers are still not that great. Like, they'd be a career low in both catches and yards per game, which is saying that Waddle's been pretty good before this year. But this year, he really, even if you only count the games with Tua, hasn't been anything special. He's been fine, but just fine. Now, why do I have Waddle as a dynasty sell? Well, I mean, this week was a great week. I mean, 8 catches, 144 yards, a touchdown in week 12. First game with more than 5 catches all season. Only second game with more than 60 yards. Second with more than 6 targets. This type of game has been an aberration, not the norm. And there are other problems. Waddle has fewer receptions than Devon Achane and Jonnu Smith. It feels as if the Dolphins offense has changed entirely from 2023. In 2023, essentially nobody outside of Waddle and Tyreek Hill got involved in the passing game. Now, Hill, who also has been disappointing, Smith and Waddle are within 40 receiving yards of each other. None of them are standing out in terms of target share. There are target share problems. Waddle has just a 16.6% target share in 2024. That's 57th among wide receivers. And remember, target share is based on the total targets. So if the offense didn't pass, it's still about the share. This is how we identified the Drake London breakout. But 16.6 is bad. And it's despite Waddle playing every game. So there's no excuse there. It's not good. Now, what about target rate? Not good either. 18.2% target rate, 73rd among wide receivers. So when he's on the field, he's only seeing a target on 18.2% of those snaps. Unacceptable. Basically, Waddle is just not demanding targets anymore. We know that demanding overall targets, target share, and target rate on a per route basis are the top indicators of a good wide receiver. He's delivering on none of those. What about yards per route run? Is he delivering on that? Nope, not delivering there either. 1.79 yards per route run, 49th among wide receivers. Yeah, you could blame some of it on the 4 games that Tua didn't play, but it's still not good. And I don't understand what's gone wrong, but something's wrong. Something's wrong with Jaylen Waddle. Either he's become a worse player, he's injured and we don't know it, or the offense has moved away from him, or all three. I don't know. So how do you move on from Jaylen Waddle? I think we have to accept that we're not getting back to 3 years ago Jaylen Waddle. That's not happening. So we need to accept the new normal of what Waddle is instead of hoping what Waddle might be. So I saw this one, 25 first and 25 second in Superflex. I think I'd just take the picks, move on from Jaylen Waddle. This other one, if I'm rebuilding, Waddle 25 second, 25 third for Brandon Ayuk and 25 first. I'd rather have Waddle over Ayuk, but not by that much. And I'd like to have the 25 first. So I like this deal. And then this last one I kind of made up for Josh Downs in 25 second. Josh Downs has been a much better player than Jaylen Waddle this year. It's not close as to who's been better. Downs is younger than Waddle. I just think we don't like Downs' role. I always call him a buy. And you could even maybe get a 25 second back with Downs because he's hurt now. So if you're rebuilding, might be a good way to move on from Jaylen Waddle. There. Now, my next sell, Breece Hall. So this is a different type of sell call. With Waddle, it's because he had a big game this past week. With Hall, I'm not saying that you have to sell Hall right now. It may be difficult to do so with that knee injury hanging over his head. But I'm more saying here, Hall is a player now who's always going to be too highly priced for my liking. And let's get into why. So Hall's been a disappointment in 2024. 152 carries, 632 yards, 4 touchdowns, 4.2 yards a carry, 46 catches for 401 yards and 2 touchdowns. It's not bad. It's not bad. He's been good. But where's the improvement? We all thought the offense is better. He's another year removed from the ACL injury, big devastating knee injury he had in 2022. You would think there would be an improvement from his 2023 numbers. That has not happened. Yards per carry down, receiving yards almost the same, carries per game almost the same, not scoring more touchdowns. The offense hasn't been better. Nothing has changed. We're not seeing the pre-knee injury Breece Hall, the brilliance of Breece Hall in 2022, that elite running back. We're not seeing that. We're not seeing that this year. We're seeing a different running back. We're seeing someone who's good running back, not an elite running back like we saw a couple years ago. So why are there all of these problems? I mean, there is Braylon Allen is a factor. And then we have to look at the new coaching staff coming in, the injury, and some other things. So it seems like a long time ago. But some of you might remember, earlier this season, we were panicking about Breece Hall. The Jets created a true committee for 4 weeks, from week 2 to week 5, before Robert Saleh was fired with Braylon Allen. Now, in those 4 games, Allen didn't get much work in week 1, but for those 4 games under Saleh, Allen was involved, and Hall showed a big hit. 12.3 carries a game. Not good. 4 catches is okay. That's actually pretty good. 27.3 yards, but just the 12.3 carries is not enough. And 35.8 yards is not good either. So he wasn't performing, and he only just had 2 total touchdowns because Allen was coming in at the goal line and taking those opportunities away from Breece Hall. Hall didn't reach a 75% snap share in a single one of those games. He did not get restored to being a workhorse until the Jets transitioned to interim head coach Jeff Ulbrich, who will not be the head coach in 2025. So I think we see Allen deserves some playing time. Are we going back to this usage, or are we going to go to the usage down the stretch? I don't know. I'm not sure. I think what would make more sense is to go back to this usage, personally. But we'll see. Now, Hall has a knee injury. We have no idea how severe the knee injury is. Don't think it's going to matter for 2025. But Hall hasn't been a superstar this year. Allen might get an opportunity to show out when Hall is missing some time. And that would increase the likelihood that we send Hall's workload back to the weeks 2 to 5 level. And here's the thing. Are the Jets going to be a good team in 2025? Are they? Probably not, right? And if you're not a good team and you only have 65 to 70% of the work, how is Hall going to be a high-end running back 1 in 2025? He's not. He's not going to be. Something would have to change. We'd have to go back to 2022. And I just don't know if that's going to happen. So for me, the problem is that Hall has been valued as a super high-end dynasty RB1, one of those valuable running backs who have dynasty value. He's been a good player, but he's never consistently delivered that value. We are now 3 years into his career. He has never delivered that value. His valuation is wrong. I'm not saying he's not an RB1, because he still is. He still is a dynasty RB1. But should he be valued in that super high value RB tier? No, he hasn't shown it in 3 years. So it's hard to sell Hall now, but I did see this one. This was interesting. 3 firsts over the next 3 years for Breece Hall. You can't get 3 firsts in 2025, but this is not bad. If you're rebuilding, you get 1 first next year, and then you get extra firsts to use for assets. I don't hate that. Buying low on Garrett Wilson. I like this one. Garrett Wilson is worth more than Breece Hall in Dynasty, not less. So this is a smash accept to get a first with Wilson for Hall in a second. And then this last one I thought was the most interesting. So Breece Hall on a 25 third for Brian Thomas and Chuba Hubbard. I think Brian Thomas is worth more than Breece Hall in Dynasty. And then Chuba Hubbard, to me, is worth more than 25 third. So you're still getting some production at running back and a young wide receiver that I really, really like. So this might be something, even if you're competing, I would consider doing to move on from Breece Hall. Overall, I'm just trying to get him off my team. Wow. He's still valued in that super elite tier. Now, if you like the content I'm doing on the YouTube, you should sign up for the Patreon. Most importantly, I'm offering 7-day free trials at all tiers. I'll be doing that at least for the next few weeks. So you get an opportunity to try the Patreon before you commit money to it. I'm going to work on delivering more Patreon-only content. That is going to be a part of the offseason. There are going to be maybe less YouTube videos, more some Patreon-only videos, Patreon-only write-ups, more Patreon-only content. So if you're interested in that, check out the Patreon. Otherwise, we will move into our next player. So next player, Rhamondre Stevenson. So type of player I just have no interest in keeping if I'm not competing this year. If I'm competing, I don't know, I might let him die on my roster. hard to replace him and get something that's going to help me this year. But I have no faith in him for 2025 and beyond. This year, 162 carries, 598 yards, 6 touchdowns, 3.7 yards a carry, and 28 catches, 118 yards and touchdown. Hasn't delivered this year. He looks bad. It's randomly benched at times, not showing enough explosiveness and not enough volume or efficiency in the receiving game. And the 6 touchdowns, which, by the way, are a career high for him, are the only thing keeping him afloat. So, like I said, terrible efficiency and performance. And I think we're going to see increased competition in 2025. He's been bad lately. In the last 6 games, he's failed to break 3.7 yards a carry in any of them. And he's been lower than that in quite a few. Looks like he's slowing down. This past week fell to a 42% snap share, which we know is not good enough. That's not going to cut it. In weeks 1 and 2, it was great. 46 carries, 201 yards, 2 touchdowns, 5 carries, 5 catches for 15 yards, 23 carries a game, 100 yards a game. But since then, he's averaged just a shade under 13 carries and 44 yards a game. It's not good enough. It's just not good enough. I mean, he's been involved in the receiving game, but not efficient on that volume. So some might say, well, Stevenson signed a 4-year, $36 million extension before the season, which doesn't even go into effect until 2025. Now, some might say, well, that keeps him safe for future years. It does not. It does not. We saw Miles Sanders' contract did not save him from being replaced. We know this type of money does not keep running back jobs safe forever. It might keep them safe for a few games at the start of the season, but not forever. None of the money in 2027 or 2028 is guaranteed. And the Patriots can actually save money by moving on from Stevenson in 2026. So the only thing that's guaranteed is that he will be on the team in 2025. Not the starter, but on the team, and will probably get a chance to start the first few games at the very least. Antonio Gibson has been inconsistent, not worthy of being the RB2 on the depth chart. So what does that mean? I think the Patriots could easily draft a running back on day 2. They have 2 third-rounders. I think running back is a need for the Patriots. I think it's part of the problem. You're forcing Drake May to throw the ball a lot with no weapons. Now, they could fix that, and I think they will. But the running game isn't good enough. It's not. It's not good enough. And we see that it's something important. So the draft class is loaded with running backs who could be available in round 3. I think this is a great time to pick a running back on day 2 because it's a good value. You get the running back, and then you don't have to re-sign them. The one I've seen, Trevion Henderson, I've seen mocked to the Patriots in 2 separate mock drafts in the 3rd with one of their 3rd-round picks. Now, that could happen. But even if it doesn't, what's the best-case scenario? The best-case scenario. Stevenson comes back into the same situation a year older, where he's been not good for 2 years and somehow is better in 2025. I don't even like that scenario. So if you're selling Rhamondre Stevenson, we know Dynasty teams are desperate at running back. They are. You can sell, I've seen this one, sell Stevenson in 26 third for 26 first. Past the point of getting a first straight up, but I would take this. I mean, this is an easy deal to make. You can sell him for Isaiah Pacheco. Now, I think Pacheco might appear to carry more risk, but Pacheco has been way better than Stevenson. It's not close. So when Pacheco returns, I think he'll quickly be more valuable. And if you want to move on in the offseason, I think you'll be better off moving on from Pacheco than you will from Stevenson. And then this last one I thought was very interesting. Combine Rhamondre Stevenson and Cooper Kupp for Rashee Rice. If you're not competing, you get rid of these 2, descending competing assets for the one like higher end long-term dynasty asset in Rashee Rice. It's absolutely something I would do. Now, we've got one piece of NFL news today. Daniel Jones signed with Vikings. It's a 1-year deal. I do think it's interesting. Jones is definitely an upgrade over Nick Mullins as the current backup. As for 2025, I think it's pretty clear that the Vikings understand they won't be able to retain Sam Darnold. And they need some sort of legitimate quarterback as a backup bridge type for JJ McCarthy, because we know he's had a lot of injuries to that meniscus. So Jones is now in competition for that role. We're going to see how he does. But yeah, I mean, he should be rostered in all Superflex leagues. And I do like him in that potential, veteran mentor or whatever you want to call it role in 2025. I do think it's very clear, though, that Sam Darnold is going to be gone. And we'll see where he signs in free agency. That'll be another interesting story to track. Now, I didn't actually have a Patreon question, but I did pull this from the Dynasty discussion because I thought it was interesting. What do you think Jonathan Brooks' production ceiling is? RB2? I don't know if we've ever really had a situation like this. So Jonathan Brooks was a good running back prospect. Would he have been the RB1 in most years? No. Would he have been maybe a late first round pick without the injury, maybe. A high profile running back is picked, right? I mean, Brooks is that. He got put in a horrible situation and then without ever seeing the field due to injury is immediately replaced. And then Chuba Hubbard's contract is extended. The difference here is the Panthers knew Brooks was hurt when they drafted him, but a team who was bad and in kind of rebuild mode, why did they draft Brooks? I have no idea. Didn't really make sense. I do think that Brooks still has the potential to be an RB1 someday, but we might never see it. We might never know. And that sucks. Luckily, Brooks was drafted as a 21-year-old rookie, so he might get a chance to prove it later on. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know if we can really answer this, but I do think, unless Brooks is just permanently injured, he could still be an RB1 someday. So that's why I'm still kind of buying low on Brooks, but it has to be low. Can't be, medium low, if that makes sense. Now, if you like the video, make sure to drop a like and leave a comment with your thoughts. As always, the best way to support the channel is to subscribe. And don't forget to hit that notifications bell so you can be notified about all my exciting content as it drops. Of course, if you want my best fantasy football advice, available on the Patreon. 7-day free trials I'm offering, at least for the next few weeks. Dynasty, start, sit, redraft, and more. And every sign up helps support my independent content. You sign up right there. Patreon.com/fantasy advice. But once again, thanks for watching, and I'll see you all later.